took us about a year to get pregnant with Kate. And when we found out we were pregnant, we were ecstatic. You know, a few months after that, when we found out we were having a girl, we were even more ecstatic. There was just this thought that our family was complete. You know, they often call it the $1 million family. We thought, here we are, we've got our $1 million family at our fingertips. You know, I had a relatively uneventful pregnancy. There was some concern that I had placenta accreta, and so I was monitored quite closely for that. I had more than your average number of ultrasounds, a lot of check-ins with my doctor. At our 33-week ultrasound, the technician said, everything looks great. Your girl's measuring really big. Everything looks healthy. It's as it should be. And there was no longer any concern that I had this placenta accreta. So we followed up that ultrasound appointment with my doctor, and my doctor said the same. You know, she said, I remember giving me a high five and saying, "We're home free." The weekend before she was born, I started feeling quite unwell, but I thought that was just, you know, normal. It was about a week before she was due to be born via planned C-section. And so I chalked it up to it being the tail end of the pregnancy. And then one night in particular, I started feeling what were some Braxton Hicks. And then, you know, that changed my outlook. I thought immediately, okay, she's ready. She's going to come, and she's going to come sooner than her planned surgery date. And so I remember the first one came, I was walking down the stairs and I yelled out to my husband and I said, I'm feeling a contraction. I think she's gonna come early. And I remember my husband saying, oh boy, like, you know, that excitement and that nervousness that comes with that anticipation. And so that night, in the middle of the night, I woke up, and in what I had never experienced before, I was able to really get a hold of her in my stomach, and I grabbed what might have been her arm or her leg, and give her a little nudge, and she didn't push back. And so I woke my husband up, and I said, you know, I'm pushing her and she's not moving, and still on some level, I thought everything was fine, or I couldn't imagine it wouldn't be fine. On the way to the hospital, you know, I was just thinking, it was so weird, because on some level I was thinking everything's fine, but on another level I was saying, you know, please God, let everything be fine. The nurse, I remember, looked really panicked. And then there was a nurse beside me, just at my head here, and she was holding my hand. And the nurse on the Doppler put it on a third area. And I said, Ken, and I probably yelled, can you hear anything? Is there a heartbeat? And the nurse yelled back. I'm sure she was scared, and said, I need to concentrate. So the doctor came into the room and put the Doppler on my stomach just once, and looked at me and said, I'm sorry, I don't hear a heartbeat. I don't believe that your baby is alive, but we will have to confirm that with an ultrasound. And with that, I collapsed into my nurse's arms, who was just right beside me, and, you know, the world that I knew ceased to exist, and everything came crashing down. It was only really a matter of a few hours between when I went into labor and when I was wheeled into the operating room to have Kate. And heading into that operating room was one of the scariest things that we've ever experienced in our lives. One of the saddest things. Our daughter, Kate Grace Wheatley, was born still at 5:55 a.m. and the room echoed that stillness. We didn't get to see her until I was in the recovery room. So they moved me into recovery right away. And our nurse was the one who brought her in. And so we met her just before 7 a.m. that morning, and our nurse brought her in a pink knitted blanket and this colorful knitted cap. And she placed her in my arms and said, "Here's your daughter." Overall, the care that I received was really good care. However, there were just those times where I felt extremely connected to my nurse.
Each one of us as nurses are very sensitive to helping the family. I think with experience and with comfort in just being present for families going through this period of loss, you gain comfort with asking them questions more than providing them information. And with asking those questions, you're able to gain insight into what you can do to help them through this process. You can't take that pain away. It's forever etched in their hearts.
The nurse started helping me process my grief and, the situation that I had just been dealt with. Those are the times that I look back and am so grateful for. Along with our nurse, continually encouraging us to take the time that we needed to spend with Kate. She mentioned a number of times about getting photographs taken of her. And so, I think it was probably the fourth or fifth time that she had said to us, we'll take Kate, we'll get some photos of her for you, that I finally just resigned to the fact that, okay, go take her for photos. Not really understanding that those photos are some of the only things that I'll ever have of her. In my mind, at that point when she was asking, I just didn't want to let her out of my sight. I knew I was going to have to give her up. So I didn't want to give her up temporarily. I wanted every minute that I could have with her. In retrospect, I wish I would have been given the opportunity to participate in that ritual. I wish that I could have bathed my daughter for the first and only time. I wish I could have picked out an outfit for her to be dressed in, that I could have dressed her.
I think patients want us to do things with them. They want to be a part of that process, or to be the drivers in how far they go in the process, whatever that process is for them, whether this is loss or even a family experiencing a healthy delivery.
In that process, I imagine that I would have looked over her whole body. I could have pointed out, that her toes were the same as mine, or she had my husband's nose, or whatever it might have been. I feel like that was a missed opportunity for me to really participate in the memory making with Kate, and in really feeling that I was the parent to Kate.
Parents who have lost children are still the parents of those children. My hope is that we give them every opportunity in the time that they have to be that parent.
There was one situation where I found myself alone in my hospital bed. My husband must have gone for something, and my mother as well. And I just remember feeling so overwhelmed, so panicked, so heartbroken, and so isolated. And I remember pressing my call button, and a nurse who I had not seen before, and as it turns out would never see her again, came into my room and said, how can I help you, or whatever it was that she said. And I remember just crying inconsolably and saying, nobody seems to be caring about me. I've just lost my baby, and no one is around. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And the nurse came over and she sat on my bed, and she had noticed that I had a stack of photos of Kate there. And she grabbed my photos and she started looking through them. And she said, "Is this your daughter?" And I said, "Yes." And she looked through every single one of those photos with me. And she said such things as, "Oh, what dark hair she has. Oh, she's so beautiful. She looks like you." All of those things. And, at one point I remarked to her, yeah, she really was beautiful, wasn't she? And the nurse looked at me and said, "She is beautiful. She is still your daughter. You are still her mom. Just might be the way that you envisioned it to be, but you are forever her mother." Our primary nurse that day had really encouraged us to spend as much time with Kate as we wanted to. And in her having those conversations with us, she said, "I can put her into the cuddle cot. Do you want to use the cuddle cot? It's a cooling bed. It'll help you have more time with her." And in my mind, even though the nurse had briefly mentioned that it was a cooling bed, I had this feeling that it would have still kept Kate warm, or it would have kept her in the state in which we had her.
So use of the cuddle cot is something that's common for our labor and delivery units, but the understanding of the cuddle cot is not common for families who come to us for support.
When Kate came back, my husband and I were quite alarmed. She was very cold. She was very stiff and rigid. And in our minds, that signified that she was deteriorating. With that fear that she was deteriorating, right after she came back cold from the cuddle cot, we had a quick conversation, and we said, we want to remember her how she was in those first few hours. And we made the decision to let her go.
It's so overwhelming. There's no way that anyone can remember everything that's told to them. They need to hear it a number of times, and we need to give ourselves permission to repeat what we're saying, and we need to give our families permission to ask us the same question over again.
The day after Kate had passed, the nurse who was with me when we found out she had passed and through our delivery showed up in our room And I remember she was in this little jean jacket and she had her purse over her shoulder, and we were so relieved to see her. Again, I just made that connection with her. And I thought, okay, everything's gonna be a little bit more okay because she's here. And we said something to the effect of, great, you're back. And she said, I'm not here to stay, I'm just here to check in on you. She said, what I saw between you and your husband yesterday was beautiful. Clearly there is a lot of love between you two, and I know that that love is going to carry you through the difficult times ahead. And she said, don't ever forget that love. And she said to us, if you have a service for Kate, I would like to be there. And she said to us, it was a pleasure to serve you. And the fact that she wanted to attend our daughter's service made us think that she, in some way, was affected by our loss and by the short life of our daughter. And that's what a parent who experiences a loss wants and needs to know, that their child's short life made an impact on them. I suppose that what's important to know here is that even what seems like the most insignificant gestures, the smallest things, the shortest time frames of interactions that you have with your patients really do mean something. Every interaction is an opportunity to demonstrate your empathy for those families. It's an opportunity to help them start out on their grieving process. And it's an opportunity to commemorate their children and the fact that they are parents.